Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Freed. I'm the current FAER National Academy of Medicine Fellow, and I'm just going to kind of provide an update on the program and a little bit of my background and what I've been doing over the life of this fellowship so far. These are my two kids. This is William and Elizabeth. William is the chorizo, and Liz is the Polish sausage here. And we start out with a slide like this in most of my talks because what's fun in my house is, they like to ask where I've been during the day, what I've been doing. They can't believe that you can do both science and medicine. And again, I'm going to be talking about some other things as well, but they're absolutely right. I mean, as a physician scientist, especially as a cardiac anesthesiologist, I take care of patients that look like this. They're very sick. They're typically at the end stages of their cardiovascular disease. We're taking them off helicopters, putting them on ECMO and life support. I have this constant reminder every week of how devastating cardiovascular disease is. And then I usually tell my kids, yeah, but then the rest of the week I get to go into my laboratory and study how it all begins. And while traditionally we think of heart disease as affecting the large coronary vessels, as shown here in this image, over the past 10 years or so, we now have a better understanding that the microvessels, the microvasculature in the coronary system that are highlighted here, are really the nidus for cardiovascular disease, and that's what I study in my lab. Everything I do in my laboratory is in humans. It's either in human tissue or whole humans that we bring in and study. So I'm a translational vascular biologist as well as a cardiac anesthesiologist. I just want to tell you a little bit about the type of research that I do. This is just an example of some of the clinical trials that we're working on right now. One is looking at the effect of plasma ceramides. This is a type of lipid on peripheral, it's actually microvascular function. These are small pilot studies. This particular study, we're just looking at 20 or so patients or participants. They come in, they take a high fat, they ingest a high fat meal. It's a wonderful lemon blueberry shake shown here. They're randomized to either a long chain fatty acid or medium chain fatty acids. The long chain fatty acids should increase the ceramides. And then we look at how consuming those ceramides over time affect vascular function. This is another type of clinical trial that we're working on right now. This is a little larger. It's 60 participants. But the idea here is that we're trying to link microvascular function to also cardiorespiratory fitness. And in order to do that, we have to look at people who are frail versus people who are fit. And so here, this is an image of someone on a bike that we're testing. We're kind of stressing them with exercise while having micro catheters in their skin to look at microvascular function. So that's just another example of a type of study we're doing. And then I do also dabble a little bit in women's health. We're looking right now at the effect of estrogen, also in the microvasculature. This is a larger study, about 40 participants, and I'm not going to go into the details as I have it with the others. But long story short, for a long time, we've thought estrogen is very beneficial to our vascular function, but we just don't have the full story there. And it turns out, I'll just give it away, that it turns out that the pattern of estrogen, how it kind of rises and falls throughout the month naturally, that's what might be providing the protection as opposed to just, taking it in as a supplement every day. So that's just kind of me and the type of research that I'm doing. And I just kind of want to jump into a little bit of what the National Academy of Science is, and as well as the National Academy of Medicine. So in 1863, Abraham Lincoln was president, and there's a lot going on at the time, the Civil War. And he was meeting with his cabinet, and this cabinet is shown here. And I think I like to tell myself that he was sitting in the room looking around and asking them, what do we do about disease and health and science? And he was asking them all sorts of questions, and well, they didn't have the answers. And so in 1863, on March 3rd, he signed a congressional charter that established the National Academy of Sciences. It's a private nonprofit institution that provides independent advice to the US government on scientific and technical matters. So they are not actually part of the federal government. They are separate, but the goal is again to kind of give advice when needed to the experts who have the expertise. Now, over time, the National Academy of Science kind of grew into three separate national academies, the National Academy of Science, the National Academy of Engineering, and then originally the Institute of Medicine, which is now the National Academy of Medicine. This is the building here in Constitution Avenue. There are other buildings in Washington, D.C., where you might have to go and work, but this is considered the flagship building. And again, when we refer to the national academies as a plural, is actually referring to these three sciences, engineering, and medicine. So again, what do they do? Well, the important thing of NASM is in the national academies is to identify key issues that are addressed through various activities. And that sounds rather broad. But again, the idea is to bring together experts in the field to create consensus reports, which serve as guidelines, guidelines for policy, guidelines for decisions made at the White House. Essentially, again, these are the experts sitting in a room coming together and trying to answer a question, is there too much sugar in the diet, right? And they'll bring the panel of experts together and they'll create the consensus study. And that consensus study might involve various experts from, everything from a policy expert to a nutrition scientist to a food industry expert. It's a wide range of opinions in the room that are supposed to come together and create a consensus. So what is expected of the fellows, especially in the National Academy of Medicine? So this kind of outlines what we've done. So when I started in September of 2024, the first thing you do is attend a 3-day orientation in Washington, D.C., immediately followed by the next month by an annual meeting in October. The annual meeting for the National Academy of Medicine is always about a day and a half meeting in mid-October. It usually coincides, unfortunately, with the American Society of Anesthesiologists meeting. And then in the spring, we have the Emerging Leaders in Healthcare meeting. It's usually in April. Again, it's no more than 2 days. It's usually about a day and a half, and really good networking opportunities there. When you start out as a fellow, you do have a monthly call with Yumi Phillips. She's the fellowship director. And then after about the first 6 months, the frequency of those calls decrease. And that's just an opportunity to kind of talk with her about, well, I'm really trying to get involved with this board or this activity. And then Yumi can pull her strings and try to get you a connection there. But really, what's your job? It's to get involved with these consensus studies, activities, workshops, action collaboratives. There are all sorts of things going on in the National Academy of Medicine, and you really want to try to dabble in as much as you can. You potentially want to identify a mentor. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really identify one in my first year. And now that the fellowship is starting to come to a close, I'm actually going to be meeting with Victor Zhao, the president of the National Academy of Medicine, because he and I have much in common, and he might be a potential mentor. And then, of course, you get to network with really a bunch of amazing leaders. So some of the activities that I've been getting involved with, one is a consensus study that's called On Being a Scientist. This is a consensus report that was actually created, I want to say in 2009. And so it's the bulk of it is there, but it's just time for us to update it. And so this is a consensus report on the ethics and responsibilities regarding the conduct of science. I think this is incredibly important right now. I'm very passionate about these things. As I said, the last report was in 2009. So we're currently updating the report, which means bringing together panels of people and experts to come up with what these guidelines should include. So I've attended committee meetings to decide content. Most, I would say 90% of these meetings have been virtual, so they're just Zoom. And now we are being assigned some of the writing for the report. And when I say writing, yeah, typically they use a scientific writer. We're not sitting there writing pages and pages of text, but rather just kind of reviewing the documents and giving our insight and input where needed. So that was a consensus study. I think one of the larger activities and things I've been involved with is the National Academy of Sciences Food and Nutrition Board. And the reason why I kind of showed the type of research that I'm doing in the beginning is a kind of link to why I chose some of the activities that I chose. And so the Food and Nutrition Board fosters dialogue and open discussion on food and nutrition related issues. And sometimes these issues obviously revolve around health. And as I showed you earlier, I look at the effect of ceramides or lipids. And essentially now I'm looking at the effect of certain types of diets on our vascular function. And so for the Food and Nutrition Board, it's just been fascinating. We bring together leaders from the food industry, the government, consumer groups, academia, and it's in a neutral setting to identify the challenges and explore potential solutions for food safety systems and health. I've never seen anything quite like it. People are in the room that have very different priorities. You'd think, that a food and nutrition expert is not going to get along with somebody from Coca-Cola or General Mills. These are people who are producing soda and processed foods, but they really do come together and try to think about what's best for the global food supply and our nation's health. So on September 9th in 2025, I did attend and helped plan a women's health food and nutrition workshop. I was a planning committee member and was also served as a moderator on that workshop. So again, the reason why I showed you my some of my projects, I do have an interest in women's health, and so I thought this was fascinating because it was kind of bringing together two areas of my research um, into one setting, and so that was great. So this was a good example of I'm involved with the board. The board gets together in person for board meetings twice a year. It's usually December and April, and I've been attending those. And then we do these workshops in between. This workshop happened to be virtual, but again, I got to plan some of it and then serve as a moderator. It was a really great experience. So again, I just said this, the in-person meetings are about twice a year. At this time when I gave this talk, my next board meeting was coming up in December 4th and 5th. And what we did at that time was talk about, kind of goals for the upcoming year, types of workshops, and next steps and things we want to do. So another area and activity at the National Academy of Medicine that I've been really passionate about is the Physician Scientist Workshop. This was held September 9th, 2025. Essentially, I got an email from the National Academies about 2 months before this date saying, hey, we're going to have this President's Workshop on site in person, one day only. And we just want a group of experts to come into a room and really talk about how we can, you know, uh, handle the decline in the number of physician scientists in the United States. And I said, count me in, I'm there. So I found somebody to cover me actually in the operating room that day. I attended the meeting. Again, this was a president's workshop, so it was led by Victor Zhao at the time. And we were discussing challenges and innovative solutions to sustain the physician scientist pipeline. And although, yes, I'm a fellow, I'm in the room with these people and they're open to my opinions and suggestions. And it really was a great experience. So the current NIH director was there kind of working with us, and a lot of it was led by Dr. Robert Lefkowitz, a former Nobel Prize winner and physician scientist. Really, really great experience. And then, after you do a workshop like this, you're not really sure what's going to happen afterwards. A lot of times you have to follow up. And so I would follow up with the fellowship director and say, well, it was a great workshop, but I haven't heard anything since. And she said, oh, well, there is actually more going on. And so now I've been assigned to a subcommittee looking at the role of mentoring of physician scientists in the United States. I'm very happy about that. So other things coming up, I did express interest in a new action collaborative. It's called the Medical and Public Health Preparedness for Disasters and Emergencies. This is interesting. The Department of Defense, or now known as the Department of War, is interested in creating what are called MOCs, Medical Operating Care Coordination Centers, and essentially just want to be prepared for any future disasters and public health emergencies. Again, I kind of already talked about this. There's the NAM annual meeting in October, and then we have the Emerging Leaders in Healthcare annual meeting in April. Again, those are just the 2 meetings per year that you are expected to go to. And then my final thoughts about the fellowship. I don't know. There has been a lot going on, obviously, starting, in January 2025 with the federal government. Everything done by the national academies is done through, we'll say, soft money, which means, they require money from the NIH or the Department of Energy. And as these things have been cut, which coincided with me basically starting my fellowship, yes, some of the programs I was interested in or activities unfortunately had to go away, but this was still just an outstanding experience. The fellowship has really exceeded my expectations. The networking alone, the people you get to meet and to see how they operate has just been wonderful. Again, the networking opportunities have been amazing, not just with the leaders in the field or the president of the National Academy of Medicine, or meeting the Surgeon General, or you know um, it's just you get starstruck, but really just also my cohort of individuals that are fellows alongside of me. It's a great group of people. You get to know them very well, and you just know that in the future, they could be running the National Academy of Medicine. And one day I turned on the television and saw one of my fellows who I'm friends with on CNN talking about her research. It's just been amazing. So the opportunities are there. If you become a fellow, they're not going to just give you a list of things to do. You kind of have to seek them out and really have an open mind. Of course, when I joined as a fellow, there wasn't an action collaborative on the role of the microvasculature and cardiovascular health. But what I did was I found activities that frankly just were interesting to me and that maybe coincided with the type of research I do, in my lab. So no, I'm not going to look at, there's not going to be a consensus report on, again, how the diet affects the microvasculature, but being part of the Food and Nutrition Board has really led to a lot of great connections with the USDA, the FDA, Consumer Reports, and the food industry. It's just been amazing. So you just kind of have to keep an open mind and kind of try some things out. If you try an activity and you don't feel like you're getting any traction, it's okay to kind of say, okay, well, thanks, and I'm going to move on, and then kind of try to stick with the activities that they're really kind of including you as a member. And so that's all I have. And I hope that if you're thinking about applying to the fellowship that you do, it's been an amazing experience. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out anytime.